So the Knicks have the 8th pick, the 27th pick, and the 38th pick in the 2020 NBA draft. So in today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys 5 options that they can select with their 38th pick in the second round of the 2020 NBA draft. So let's start with player number 1. So the first player that the Knicks should consider taking in the 2020 NBA draft and in the second round with the 38th pick is Killian Tillie. So Killian Tillie is a stretch 5 out of Gonzaga University that averaged this past season. He averaged 13.5 points per game, 5 rebounds and 2 assists per game, as well as 1 steal, and his field goal percentages were 53.5% from the field, which is actually pretty good, and 40% from the 3-point range. So he is 6'10 and 220 pounds, and his wingspan is 6'11. So the reason that the Knicks need Killian Tillie is that he is a 3-point shooting specialist as a stretch 5, and he's a good 3-point shooter as a big, and he can pass the ball pretty well. He has good court vision, and to have a stretch 5 big like that under Mitchell Robinson would really be a good idea for the New York Knicks, because they could just help out with the bench and the floor spacing on the bench. So I think he would lead it with the floor spacing as a center, and he could develop his jump shot even more. He can be an even more consistent shooter. He has deep range. He could really score the ball. He can be a type of like a Kevin Love type of player in the future. He has the talents and he has the tools for that if he really goes into developing his game with the New York Knicks, as they hired Kenny Payne. They also hired Johnny Bryant, and as well as Mike Woodson, which was already previously on the Knicks as they made the playoffs in that season. And now he's back on the Knicks and back on being an assistant coach with Tom Thibodeau. So now the Knicks have a great developmental staff, so adding a player like Killian Tillie would really help out, because he's a stretch big, as I already stated, and to shoot the ball is definitely a preference in the NBA, and to be able to shoot as a big is really what some NBA teams and all NBA teams want. And I think the Knicks are one of them that really want one badly right now, because they don't have a stretch 5, like a real clear on stretch 5. So I think adding one to be on the bench, nothing crazy, just to have that little role to shoot the ball and to be able to be ready for the 3-point jumper, and a big man that can pass the ball pretty well, even though his stats didn't show it. But by me analyzing his game, I saw his great court vision, and I think the Knicks can definitely add that type of player like that. So now let's hop into player number 2. So the second draft prospect for pick number 38 for the New York Knicks is Isaiah Joe. So from the University of Arkansas, Isaiah Joe averaged this past season 17 points per game, 4 rebounds, and about 2 assists per game, as well as 1.5 steals per game, 36% field goal percentage, and 34% 3-point percentage. So some of you guys might think that this player, Isaiah Joe out of Arkansas, with that field goal percentage of 36% and 3-point percentage of 34%, shouldn't even get draft consideration to be going to the NBA. But he can easily become the best shooter in this draft class. So first of all, in this past season, Isaiah Joe has attempted more than 10 3-point shots per game, and the only player in the NBA to do that actually was James Harden. And also, Isaiah Joe attempted just below 3.5 2-point field goals per game, shooting it at a respectable 45% mark. And he has been given the brightest green light imaginable and just took full advantage of it by shooting over 10 3-point field goals per game, and that has caused him to have a low field goal and 3-point percentage. But don't forget, he is just 21 years old and he has great shooting mechanics. He has a great looking jump shot, so I think if he develops it the right way, he could be a deadly 3-point shooter and will be shooting it at an effective and consistent rate. He also scored 89% of his free throws in this last season, which was proven to be that he has great mechanics in his game and that he is a legitimate scorer. With both Damian Dotson and Wayne Ellington's free agency decisions up in the air, the Knicks might be looking to take a shooter with the 38th pick like Isaiah Joe, and they might think that he is the best option available at 38. So now let's hop into player number 3. So the third option at number 38 for the New York Knicks would be Cassius Winston. So out of Michigan State, Cassius Winston averaged 18.5 points per game, about 2.5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 1 steal, while averaging a consistent 45% field goal percentage and 43% three-point field goal percentage. So the upside of his game is that he's a great shooter, great scorer, great driver, and a great passer. And he's been becoming really good at setting pick and rolls for his teammates. So to summarize it, in terms of offense, he is a great player, and he will be a great player for the New York Knicks with the offensive side of the ball in terms of leadership, IQ, and his ability to score on the outside shot and drive inside will be a good plus for the New York Knicks. But there is a major downside to this game that might make the Knicks pass on him with the 38th pick, and that is that he is 6'1", only 6'1", and he is not a good defender, and the Knicks do not need another player that cannot play defense. So he is a good offensive player, but does that mean the Knicks will select him? I'd actually say probably not. It's just an option that they can consider, unless they draft a player like an Isaac Okoro, a defensive-minded player, with their number 8th overall pick to stack up on defense with Frank Ntilikina and Okoro, as well as maybe some other players like Robinson. So if they select Okoro, maybe they might rethink this option of Cassius Winston as being a leader, as I've said in the video. I think they might consider him, but in terms of drafting him and actually selecting him with the number 38th overall pick, I don't know if that will happen, but that definitely will be into consideration in terms of his offense. That's no doubt. He's a great player on offense, just the defensive side of it will not be a good idea. So now let's hop into player number 4. And speaking of Cassius Winston, we will now be talking about his teammate in Xavier Tillman. So the Michigan State big has averaged 13.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2.1 blocks per game, as well as averaging a 55% field goal percentage, as well as 26% from the three-point range. And those are the stats of a big last season. So the Knicks can definitely benefit from Xavier Tillman in many ways. Even though he has a 6'9" height, his wingspan is 7'1", which he uses excessively to disrupt the passing lanes in the paint. And his averages of 1.3 steals per game and 2.1 blocks per game prove that point. The other upside to his game is that he has averaged 61% on shots inside the paint. So that means he has a very good touch in the paint, and that is definitely what would be a useful thing for the New York Knicks. So Tillman did try to expand his game to the next level by shooting three-pointers and deep range type of shots, but didn't excel on that yet, as he only shot 26% from three-point range. But he is definitely working on it and definitely wants to become a stretch 5. So if he can develop that too with the range, that would be really good for Tillman, and I think the Knicks fit would be even better with him, as he could space the floor. But as I've said, he hasn't excelled in that level yet, but he will try to do it, and if he does, and if he excels in it, that would be really good. And also his strengths are defense, rebounding on the other side of the court. Then you got pick and roll play. So from Cassius Winston to Xavier Tillman, that's a great connection, because as I've said earlier in the video about Cassius Winston, he's great at pick and roll plays, and Tillman was obviously the one that finished the plays, and Cassius Winston was the one that started them. So now let's talk about player number 5. So the 5th and final option for the New York Knicks with the 38th pick in the 2020 NBA draft is Vernon Carey Jr. out of Duke University. So for last season, his stats are 18 points per game, about 9 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game, and about 2 blocks per game. And that is while averaging almost a 58% field goal percentage and 38% from downtown. So the reason that the Knicks should just consider Vernon Carey Jr. is that he has the size and the strength to go through contact in the paint, and he can go through anyone, so that's not a problem for him. He's good with the size and the strength, as well as the post-up game. His post-up game is really good. He has good footwork as well. His rebounding is actually also really good, as he's averaged almost 9 rebounds per game this last season in Duke. And that's definitely not bad for 25 minutes of playing time on an average per game. And with that being said, he also has pretty good shooting potential. If he tries to expand his game on a different level, that would be a great idea for him, not for people to think that he's a classic center that cannot space the floor. In today's game, you gotta be able to space the floor, even if you're a center, because the more floor spaces is the better for the team and for the better function of the team. So I think if he can definitely try to develop his jump shot, I think he'll be a deadly center in the NBA, because he has the frame and he has the tools to be that. He has a good footwork, which is really crucial as a center, which would be in the NBA. So let me know what you think of all these 5 prospects that the Knicks should look out for with the 38th pick, if at least one of them can fall to it. And I'm sure at least one of them, or 2 or 3, would fall definitely. So let me know if you did enjoy this Knicks video, and if you guys want to see more videos like these. And also let me know which player you liked best for the New York Knicks in terms of fit. It was KNYT here, and I'm out. Peace.